Hi guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video. Hope you're doing well today. So today I'm going to be going over the patch notes that was released yesterday, as well as a bit of talking about this whole ganking 1v1 thing, the new changes. So if you don't know about it, we'll cover it in the patch notes and then we'll go into it in more detail afterwards. So yeah, hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys have enjoyed the new patch. There's a couple of changes I disagree with, a couple of changes I agree with, but again, we'll talk about them in a bit more detail in a second. So, I'm just going to briefly sort of go over, basically, the first part of it, they talk about server issues, they talk about the fact that it's just launched and had great success, a lot more than they were kind of expecting. So, this is why they've had a bit of struggle. However, this is still only the start and they are still working on it. So, it is stuff we've actively seen improvements with, they're doing things to improve them. We know that they're getting there slowly. So, the improvements. If you earn more fame than you need to complete your next Destiny board level, the excess fame is now applied to the following levels. Thank God! So yesterday, I crafted almost 700 mage cows. Yeah, in one go. And then studied all of them in one go. And that was it. It was done. I didn't have to work out the math and waste fame and all this sort of stuff. I crafted 700 and was like, done. Guys, this is such a good change. It's a quality of life change, 100%, but it's a good one, okay? You can now see the actual crafting capacity amount in the capacity bars tooltip. Only refreshes when reopening the building info. Don't actually know what this is. I believe it's like the durability of the building, so to speak. There are now tooltips in item info on the weight and item value numbers for stacks of items that tell you the values for a single unit. This is cool. It just means that when you click on an item that had like 10 stacked, you can see what one is, so you can work it out. Weapons, offhand armors, mounts, tools, refined materials, furniture, potions, and food now all have crafting sounds that more sensibly match their materials. Doesn't make a difference for me just because, well, I mean, I don't play with sounds on most of the time, but still, it's still cool that they've thought about it. The Ore Giant, which is the Guardian, has been tweaked and improved. This is good because he was one of the easiest ones because you used to just bug him against a wall and it was really, really just easy, to be honest. Crafted by info on items is now preserved when they're bought and sold at marketplaces. This is actually really cool. You know why? Because when I buy something, I want to know who crafted it so I can whisper them next time and get another one. Seems simple, right? But yeah, so that's something that I'm quite happy that's come in, because it means that if I buy something and it says crafted by X, it means next to I can just whisper that person directly and be like, look, I bought this off you last time, is there any chance, you know, I can give you the match, you can craft me another one, I'll give you a bit of a tip. And you know what, most people will do it for the free fame. Changes. Halden Hill has been renamed Halden Tor and demoted from T5 to T4. So this has been done because this was the only T5 blue zone in the game. It was supposed to get changed in a previous one, it got oversighted, and it's something that's needed to happen. It's not a bad change at all, so please don't think that this is bad. It was something that needed to be done to make it fair on every zone. Castle chest spawn times have been altered. They'll now spawn twice every Sunday and at the same time in all clusters. The first spawn will happen when the earliest spawn would have happened, and the second spawn will happen when the latest spawn would have happened. This means that at each spawn time there are now twice as many castle fights to fight over, and at least 2 on each continent, which should spread the server load out a bit more. Please know that we cannot be sure how many people will sign up for these events, or how the servers will handle them, so the play experience may be uneven. If everyone goes to one castle, it's going to break. If everyone goes half and half, it's going to be good. Basically is what that means. Like, there's going to be so many castle fights now on Sundays. Sundays is going to be a really fun day. Like, I don't think there needs to be everyone going to one castle fight if other castles are just going to be empty and, like, free for the taking. Temporarily doubled spawn rates of T4 resources in safe zones and of T5 resources in yellow zones. This is not expected to be permanent. This is something I'd like to have seen on release, just coming from release. It hasn't. It's fine. There's no point going back on it now. But just to deal with, obviously, rates of people. But there are so many people in blue zones, so many people in yellow zones, because they're safer. They don't want to progress to them red zones or black zones yet. It doesn't really affect me at all. I don't go to these zones, but I mean, for newer players, this is a real nice change. It means that they can actually start getting some resources. They're still going to have to compete, but they have half the weight, basically. They can gather twice as quick, which is cool. To improve queue times, expeditions will now always look for 1 tank, 1 healer, and 3 DPS. This is good. Like, expeditions have a weird problem where people used to queue in for random stuff and stuff like that. It was weird, but the fact that they're very strict on what they're looking for now means that you're going to get a better experience inside as well. Adjusted volumes of beam sounds for buffs and debuffs. I don't know what that means, honestly. So, item icon frames will now always show the notches for enchantment levels, even if they're unenchanted. In this case, all notches will be empty. This has got a weird thing to it. So, in this patch, items have like a purple glow around them, which makes me think every item is up to pinpoint 3. I don't like this. Just let them be blank and then have green, blue, purple. Have the notches on them, fine, but have green, blue, purple. Don't have like purple, green, blue, purple, because that's confusing. Please. Please. Adjusted the curious expedition to only require okay, whatever. That's a short little thing. Leaving the ring in a duel now ends after 10 seconds rather than 3 seconds. You know who you are and what you're doing. Effectively, people used to go with very, very cheesy like ironclad builds, knockout builds, bedrock maces, basically anything that could knock you out of the ring and hold you there for any length of time, 3 seconds really. Was a viable dual build, and it kind of sucked a little bit. So the fact that they've changed that is a pretty welcome change. You can no longer place furniture anywhere in Carleon Bank or Carleon Market. Yay! It's just a good change, to be honest. It makes things a lot nicer, a lot tidier. Now farms are up and running, mobs will no longer drop carrots, so if you've got any carrots built up, now's the time to sell them. Now is going to be the best point. In a week's time, people will have too many of them anyway, and like people have moved too far away from them. But right now, you could probably get some good money off them. I sold a load of mine for 200 each yesterday. It's just ridiculous. Reputation changes. Now, this was something I was a bit unsure of, but let's talk about it. So reputation gain from PvE increased by 50%. Which means it's easier at all points to get back to neutral. And above, actually, but it's easier to get back to neutral. Increased daily reputation recovery at Villainous from 500 to 750. Which means the decay would be like just over a day for like 999 to 0. Reduced daily reputation recovery at Nefarious level from 1500 to 500. And then increased daily reputation recovery at Dreaded reputation from 1,500 to 200. All of that means that it's better to stay at like Villainous because the decay's good. So it's better to stay there or go to Dreaded than it is to stay Nefarious, which seems a bit weird to me. But Villainous means that you can just get to Villainous, gank a couple of people, and then within 10-20 minutes you could probably work that off in a blue dungeon or a green dungeon. Like you can basically permanently gank now if you're smart about it. If you're out for pure blood, then you go to Dreaded, of which 2k a day is quite a lot of people you can gank every day, and if you want any more, you just go and farm a bit. Dreaded players can no longer disengage their PvP mode. The only thing I don't like about this is if, and I believe it was Rosalia, so I'll definitely quote and sort of mention Rosalia here. I believe if you're flagged in PvP in Black Zone, you can't be healed unless the rest of your group flags. I hope this isn't something that's going to cause that to be an issue, because it will really bug me. Because what flagging in the Black Zone does nothing. It's a quality of life thing. You shouldn't have to do it because one player in your group is Dreaded. But yeah, so in Red Zone and stuff, it doesn't make a difference because, I mean, ultimately they can't get into Red Zones as Dreaded anyway. So I don't know, it's a bit of a weird one, the fact that this is a thing, but whatever. The net effect from these changes to make it much more desirable to stay above Nefarious, to keep people from staying too long on the maximum penalty level, and to prevent people from disabling PvP once they're Dreaded. So it's wanting people to get that sort of balance, but I don't know. We'll see. I have to see how that one works out. I'm just going to throw this one out there. These 3 changes. Access rights on farm buildings, access rights on house, now set to private by default. Access right on guild halls, now default to guild. This is great. You know why? Because I've had direwolves stolen from farm buildings because they defaulted to guild and I didn't know. Which sucks. So, Gallop. This is the first of the things I have an issue with. Gallop now times out after 2 seconds standing still rather than 1 second, and persists when changing clusters. Which means if you only get CC'd for 1 second, it also still doesn't break Gallop. Oh no, that's wrong, isn't it? No, it is just standing still. But still. Gallop now times out after 2 seconds standing still. Which is fine, I can get with that, but persists when changing clusters. This is the issue I have. When you change zone, you used to lose Gallop. And then someone with a good PC could still get away. Someone with a bad PC means that the rest of the group were going to have Gallop. So I can see why they've done it. But I just don't like it. It's just giving more people ways to sort of not be able to solo gank. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Ashen Ignited Hellgates now generally spawn new Gatekeeper mobs about twice as quickly. Do the same for red. Please do the same for red and black. We just need them. You're getting so much popularity into Black Zone and Red Zone Hellgates. Don't kill it, please. Just double all of them and see if it works out, and then adjust the numbers later. I think it will work a lot better. Cluster change invulnerability now expires once you've moved more than 150 meters from the entrance, and if it's removed in this way, it will now also allow you to gain another invulnerability immediately. This revolves some issues with Carleon Underway, among other things. So when you come into a new zone, you get a bubble. If you remove that bubble by distance rather than by time, the next time you go through another cluster, it will give you the invulnerability again. So as an example, if you come into the portal in Black Zone and you run directly to an exit and you run through that exit, you'll gain an invulnerability on both as long as you've broke it by distance and not by time, which is cool. Relic chests now spawn 4 times per day, previously daily, at 1700, 21, 01 and 05 UTC. Pretty interesting. I don't know why they... I think them times are a bit weird. Potentially could have done like, I don't know, 1... I'm trying to think now, actually. There seems to be nothing between like, well, 6 and 4, like 16 UTC. That's a long time where there's just nothing really happening. It's all evening stuff. But okay, it's nice that they're still increasing the spawn chance. There's a lot of PvP that happens around these bigger chests, so interesting to see. Castle chests now respawn twice each weekday and 4 times each weekend day, previously weekly. On weekdays there is always 1 spawn per castle at 21 UTC, and the second one alternates between 1700 and 1. And weekends they respawn at the same hours as the relic chests. Cool, we're just getting more chests, more chances for PvP. Raid bosses now spawn once per day. Each was every 3 days, alternating between 1700, 2100 and 1 UTC. Raid bosses are a bit difficult at the moment. Just because obviously there's a lot of lag that goes into them. There's a lot of competition. They're real hard to lock down at the moment, but that's part of it. And obviously they've reduced the loot by a relative factor to make it still worthwhile what you're getting, but like, if you got the same amount but 4 times a day that you were getting once a day, then that's overpowered. If you travel from Carleon to any Outlands portal while not being bound to a specific portal, you can return to Carleon within 60 seconds without binding yourself to that portal. I'm trying to read this and make it sense in my head. If you travel from Carleon to any Outlands portal while not being bound to a specific portal. Okay, so basically if you make a mistake, go to the wrong portal, you can come back through. That's cool. And now, dismounting now applies a debuff that means for 3 seconds you cannot attack other players. This is the change I don't like. This is the one. I'm just going to have a quick glance over this. I like this, by the way. They finally fixed this, where hammers and arcane stuff used to get an ability, like, as soon as you could wear T4, that actually wasn't T4. It was supposed to come in later on. So it's nice that that's changed. But yeah, so it looks like that to me is the biggest issue. So we're going to start talking about this a little bit. Basically what this means is, if you go and gank someone now, you have to run ahead of them and sort of plan that in 3 seconds you can attack them. That they're going to be in range for an attack, which kills all melee. It kind of kills all melee solo ganking at that point. You then have ranged. Ranged has to get 3 seconds ahead of the player, or think 3 seconds in advance as to where that player is going to be. Now the problem with that is, if I'm 3 seconds ahead of someone, they're going to turn around and go the other way, or run left, or run right, and they're going to run a different way to stop them being ganked. Of course, they're obviously not going to want to get ganked. So I actually went solo ganking last night. I thought I would try it because why not? I wanted to see if all the fuss was being made about something legit, or if something was being made out of nothing, basically. So I went round and I went, you know what? I'm gonna go gank people. I'm gonna go find out what's happening, and we're gonna make this work. Yeah, I lasted for about 20 minutes, and then I ganked no more. Basically, I tried using claws, I tried using a bow. So the claws, I've had great success ganking as claws. As much as people will laugh that I was using claws. Like open world, claws is a beast weapon, and I've had great success with it. But I couldn't auto attack anyone. I couldn't catch up with anyone by the time the auto attack came in and I got rid of the gallop. I had like a second or two before the skills come off, and I was just not able to catch anyone. I killed a couple of people on a T3 horse, but that was about it. And I think this goes back to the issue that people are saying that anything above T3 horse, like T4 horse, as soon as you get to a T5 armoured horse or a T6 armoured horse, you're just not going to be able to kill them. They're going to be impossible to die. And that's not something that should be a thing. Every horse should be able to die by a good enough group. So we're going to go over here. So this is a forum post on the obviously Albion official forums. Dear Sandbox, as a player that enjoys solo ganking, solo and small scale the most, I want to say thank you. Instead of fixing the pillars, you can zone to Carleon while you're an outlaw and go around higher black zone locks. You completely remove the ability to roam the black zones for loot and profit. True. I mean, people used to go black zone to black zone, and they used to go to different harbours and stuff like that, which meant you could go around the place. That's not really the issue I have with this, but still, he brings an interesting point. Basically, he lists the 3 changes that is bad. So now you can get double immunity, double invulnerability when going into any black zone. Gallop types now, again, that's the whole gallop times out changing, and then dismounting, applying the 3-second debuff. Solo gankers like Norsk, you promoted this way of playing on your front page. The ability to do something on my own has been a reason for me to play the game. Also, this game has problems with the huge amount of people playing it and the large ZVZ fights happening between alliances that have more than 1k players. Instead of making solo and small group play more attractive, you now force us to run around with at least 10 plus people, demounted a long line waiting to catch someone. I'm really curious about your reasoning for this, and I can't wait until the majority of players are riding armoured horses. And he's got it right. So Korn comes back with a very quick response and says, thanks for the feedback. The goal of these changes is to deal with issues caused by horse hopping technique. Horse hopping, for those that aren't sure, effectively what would happen is you see someone that you want to gank, one person would attack them while the next person from your group goes ahead, attacks them, and you sort of leapfrog over each other until effectively you either get skills or he gets dismounted. Of which was an issue. This was something that needed to be addressed. It was too easy to gank people doing this tactic. So I agree this was an issue and needed to be fixed, but I don't think this is the right way to go about it. And again, before people start saying this is just slanderous, I'm going to say it later on, some of the things I think that they could have done, maybe the different things that could happen that maybe would fix this, or maybe could be changed into. If a target is being chased by 2 or more players and one of them has a faster mount, he could basically never get away. The faster mounted ganker would chase, dismount, interrupt with gallop, or auto attack. The other guy would then catch up. This could be repeated indefinitely. That's obviously horse hopping. Before we had the gallop mechanic, the problem did not exist. Meaning that if you had managed to escape from a gank attempt and managed to get away on your mount, you'd generally be safe. That escaping from ganks is theoretically possible. Is crucial for the Outlands to work, otherwise they effectively completely shut down to solo and small group players. not an intention to significantly change the ganking balance in normal combat situations, since it's when you sneak up on a dismounted gatherer or PvEer, or when you're already in a fight and then try to escape from that fight. If you watch PvP videos from successful solo gankers, you notice that almost all of their ganks happen in the above situations. The problem is that no one in Black Zone doesn't have a mount next to them. They all dismount off their mount and have their mount next to them while they PvP. Or while they PvE or gather or whatever. Everyone is safe from being ganked because they can just jump onto their mount. Which means if someone jumps up to me while I'm on a mount, I believe there's a clip going around from Black Boa where he was like 7 people jumped up on him in the black zones, and this is the situation that Korn has said here, is that he then jumped on his horse and was fine. No issues were done at all there. There was no issues at all, which I don't like. What we want to address, though, is the following. People should be able to break through portal camps, and if they break through, they should be relatively safe for the time being, and not be chased down by the campers 10 seconds later. And secondly, people who are watchful and play smart should be able to play in the Outlands without facing certain death every time they meet a ganker. This does not mean they should get away 100% of the time either. Rather, it should be a game between cat and mouse. I agree. 100%. This is the logic I've been having. You should never be able to have 100% success rate of being able to escape gankers. I don't. I put out a video the other day of me escaping gankers in Black Zone by good pathing and stuff like that. But if that 3-second thing was there, I would have never been able to get away. It would have been I would have been able to get away every time. It would have been impossible for them to gank me. And this is the issue that I think people are having. So I agree that the portal thing, I hated the portal thing because it's the one time that I got ganked constantly and there was nothing I could do about it at times because people used to sit on the portal, on the zoning entrance. So I either got ganked on the way or I got ganked at the zoning entrance to the next zone because I didn't have a bubble. And I like that change, but the change of this 3-second thing, he goes on to say, note also that the 3 seconds has passed quite quickly. If, for example, you're mounted and other player tries to run through you, you'll still get to auto-attack him and hence interrupt the gallop. If, however, that player has cleared you and is now running away, chasing them from behind is more difficult. And that's really what it should be. So basically, if he paths like an idiot and runs through you, you're going to get him. If he runs in the opposite way of the guy holding the big pointy sword or bow or whatever at him, he'll be fine 100% of the time. Is basically what I'm getting from this. And I don't like that. I think that you should still have that game of cat and mouse. Even if you run in the opposite direction, it still shouldn't be a guaranteed getting away. Those of you who have played Eve, I've never actually played Eve, so I'm just going to skip over that completely. But definitely, guys, go and check out this forum post. Make your comments here as well, because they need to hear feedback and they need to hear ideas and what you guys want. You guys are the customers. You have to tell them what you want. Just to read a quote, actually, from someone that messaged me yesterday. Something to think about for your vid. We're all here because we craved for the huge gap in the market in this genre. Albion was the answer. The thrilling, brutal, frustrating, cunning, challenging, exciting, risky, dangerous, rewarding, accessible world that no other developer had the balls to give us. Ultimately, this is why the game launched as a huge success in terms of numbers of players. Since then, Sandbox seems focused on balance changes to make the game more fair, easier, protected and safe, and that's not why we all bought the game. This results in the game becoming slightly boring. They're killing their own success. Now, I don't agree with this in full. I'm not going to say that they're killing their own success and all of this slander. But truthfully, they've moved to a more casual play, allowing more casual players to survive for a longer length of time. And this is good and bad in its own ways. But what they've done with this is allow the people that don't want that frustration or the risky and dangerous situations, the gatherers that just want to be able to gather or anything like that, they've basically removed that risk. Basically, the only scenario now that I can see someone being ganked in the black zone, there's two. Either you path like an idiot and you run into them, of which case you were going to die before the patch, after the patch, with a 10-second immunity you'd die. Or they get ganked by 30, 40 people all forming a net around them, and he has to run through a player to get out. Which again defeats the point of solo or small PvP. Now, I'm not saying any of this. I just want to throw this out there. I'm not saying any of this because I dislike the game or I want to just cry about it. I'm a ganker and I'm also a gatherer. From a gatherer's point of view, I went out yesterday gathering and I was like, whatever, you ain't gonna kill me. But I also went out yesterday as a ganker and went, yeah, this isn't fun. And I'm all about fun, and this is the part that I don't like. So I'm going to leave it here for this. I'm going to make us a couple of suggestions. So a couple of the ideas I've had in terms of things that could be done differently. There's a resilience penetration mechanic in-game, which effectively, depending on the weapon, allows it to do more in a Zerg mechanic. So Glaive has a particularly high penetration rating. It's something like 75%, which means in a Zerg mechanic, when people get like negative, they get damage, defense buffs, it penetrates through them, and that's really cool. Have something similar for a horse, so or for weapons to break horses after being dismounted. So like melee weapons have a 1 second timer, whereas bows have like a 2.5 second timer. And like different things have different timers. This allows, because at the moment ranged is the only thing possible like that would ever make sense to dismount someone at this point. I would never go out with claws again. I would use bow every time. So this means that there's a little bit more spread of what can actually be done. Claws can have some goes. Claymore can have a go again. Like dagger, like just all of these melee weapons can have more of a situation where it's actually viable. And by doing that, you then tweak each weapon individually, or each weapon type individually, so that a sword maybe has a second and a half because it's really high mobility. Claws maybe has a second and a half because it's high mobility. But like quarterstaff maybe has 2 seconds because it's so mobile. But bad weapons, I'm trying to think of one. Like, why can't I think of one? Like axe. Other than Great Axe doesn't really have the mobility to catch up with someone. So, I don't know, maybe put that at a second. Like, just you can tweak each weapon individually then. Another thing is, make a Zerg mechanic for mounts. If more than, I don't know, X people are in combat with you, then your horse gains a defense buff. Or a speed buff. This means that basically you'd have to restrict the amount of people you go with, or go with so many that it's either a Zerg or it's a small group. And that's kind of what people want. They don't want this 10-man group, they want a huge Zerg, or they want that 2 or 3 people ganking. Basically 2 or 3 people, it would never change. So get rid of the gallop thing, the dismount and auto attack thing, but make it so if 10 people attacked you, your horse would immediately gain a defense buff, or like a short speed steroid or something like that. Something that gives the advantage to the gatherer for just a second, even with all of them buffs, or all of the advantages of having 10 people. But it can't be too much, because 10 people ultimately should still have the higher success rate on ganking one person if they catch one person. And this is it. It's about risk reward, and I say this so much. If someone on a tier 3 horse goes out gathering, the reward is huge, especially in Black Zone. You could go and gather loads. You might find a load of 0.3s because the higher chances, or you might go and find, I don't know, a dungeon and go and kill some bosses and get some artifacts, whatever, but the reward of being in the Black Zone is huge. The risk, though, you're maximising by taking a tier 3 horse. If someone finds you, it should have the higher success rate for the more people on the ganking side. Because ultimately, in a real fight, or take away the horses, if 10 people ganked me and I was without a horse, I'm 100% dead. Another idea that someone's actually suggested is remove Gallop. Gallop was affixed to an old issue. Buff all the horse speeds, just slightly, or all the mount speeds, just slightly, but remove Gallop. And I'm actually completely okay with this. I would rather more consistent speed than bursty speed with Gallop. And it stops this whole idea of, like, because people are saying, well, at T7 horse, you're going to be pretty hard to gank anyway because the natural speed. I got ganked on a Swiftclaw Tiger. Do you know what? They couldn't keep up. They kept gallop off, but like the natural speed was so high anyway that they had to be smart, and they weren't smart about the gank, and that's why I got away. I think even that, buff all the speeds by 10% or 20%, and get rid of gallop, and I think you would have much better success with that than what we've got currently. For what we've got currently, change it to a 2.5 if you're going to keep it. I don't think it was tested fully. I think that changing it to a 2.5 would give a lot more success. It still gives people that path brilliantly that potential success chance to get out, but I think 3 seconds is just too much. Anyway guys, I'm sorry this is a bit of a ranty video. I promised I'd do it. Yeah, I can't really say too much about it. Like, I apologise, it's a bit ranty, it is what it is. If you've enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe. Please give me your feedback in the comments. I'm always interested to see what people think. Other than that, guys, have a good day and catch you later.